Talktainment Radio Worldwide Sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
All righty. Good morning and welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio, and you are in touch with the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard. Good morning and welcome. Now, we say that on purpose because, first of all, we do want to say good morning to you, and we do welcome you and welcome your calls. And we do thank you very much. If you would like to get in contact with the show, you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9766. Those phone lines are jumping right now. And if you would like to email me, you can. 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and if I have time and I can vet it as much as I can, we will attempt to read it on the air and have Mr. Fuller address your questions. Okay, I think that's out of the way. Mr. Fuller is on the line, and he's the author of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy. And that's what we deal with. That's what we talk about to try and get you to understand exactly what you are up against. And this morning, let's start off by saying good morning, Mr. Fuller. And as usual, how are you?
I'm still learning.
Yes, sir. You're still learning. Before we get to the phone lines and emails, there's been many events that have happened in the news since we last spoke on the air. Is there anything you'd like to point out as we start this show?
Nothing specific, because there has been quite a few things in the news, as always. Mm-hmm. And the news always is about some area of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, or war. And the umbrella under which all of that comes on this place that we call the planet Earth is the system of white supremacy, which is the only real government on the planet. Unfortunately, we need a system of government that is founded on justice, but we have a government that is not, and that government dominates the thinking of all of the people on the planet, either directly or indirectly, in all of the areas of activity that I just named.
Yes.
So, therefore, we don't have a system of justice or a system of peace or a system of correctness, meaning how people relate to the environment that we have all been given, all of the people, white and non-white. So that's what we're wrestling with every day, whether we're aware of it or not.
Or not.
We wake up, everybody on the planet wakes up to that every morning because somebody thought of the idea of doing all of the world's business on the basis of who's white and who's not and how that should be conducted. And it's been a mess ever since.
Yes, sir.
And we can't solve any major problem, according to what I've written anyway, without solving that problem first. I don't care what kind of problem it is, the environment or global warming or anything like that, or what political party is doing this, or arguments about socialism and communism and capitalism. It all doesn't matter if you can't solve the problem of racism first.
Yes, sir. Okay. With that being said, let's go to the phone lines. Line number one, Galen. Line number one, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question?
Greetings, Mr. Bobby. Greetings, Mr. Fuller. I hope you all are doing well on this fine day. My question for Mr. Fuller is, basic fundamental principles, what is different about what Mr. Fuller and the direction he points and was the difference with Martin Luther King and what he was trying to point? And how does he think it's going to produce anything different than what we have already?
Mr. Fuller?
Well, it's just a different. The difference is I just address everything to individuals, and Martin Luther King addressed it to both, I guess, individuals, organizations, and indirectly, I do the same thing. In other words, everyone who's trying to get rid of racism is trying to get rid of racism. So there is no fundamental difference. You either are or you aren't. You're either trying to rid the world of racism and have a world of peace, ultimately, whatever that is. We've never experienced that, so we don't know what that's like. There's nobody on the planet who can ever really definitively say that they have experienced what peace is like with any credibility, because how can you have peace without justice? So we've never had that. There's nobody who can prove that they've had it, which means guaranteeing that nobody's mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. And there's no recorded record of that ever having been. So we've never experienced peace because we've never experienced justice. And by the compensatory definition of justice, a definition that I use, a definition that I gave it really, since there's no official definition for the word justice, quote, unquote, official. And so we don't have a guarantee that no one is mistreated. Someone is being mistreated as we speak right now. Millions of people, billions of people, probably being mistreated in some small or large way every minute of the day.
At all times.
Yes, at all times. So there is no fundamental difference between what Martin Luther King was trying to do and what Malcolm X proclaimed and what everybody who said they believed in peace, Gandhi, Jesus of Nazareth, I believe, maybe. Some people say that he was a man of peace and whatnot. So you can just go all back in history. Everybody's just said that we want peace. We want justice. We want a world as it should be, whatever that means. So there's no fundamental difference and between what I'm doing, basically, and what Martin Luther King said he was trying to do, and I guess what everybody who believes in justice should be trying to do if we can agree on what the world would look like if we had it.
Okay. Caller, did you have another question before we let you go?
Yeah, I guess then my follow-up question then is just when he said the direction in which Malcolm X was pointing, he was trying to separate, and that was the only thing that one could really do. And I guess that's why I asked, what is the difference between yours and Martin Luther King? Because even before Martin Luther King died, he said, I feel like I've led my people into a burning building. So I'm trying to think of the only logical explanation is to get rid of racism is to separate. Because I hear you say that produce justice and black people should stay away from black people. Well, then why should we try to get with white people when every white person is should be a suspect of white supremacy? Then the only logical explanation would be to separate them, correct?
Now we get into the words, which is why I put out a book called A Compensatory Counter-Racist Codified Word Guide, and you can get that by going to producejustice.com. Now, the word separate, what does that really mean? We are on the same planet. So when do I know that I'm separated from a white person? See, I'm classified as black. So what is the exact point that I know that I'm separate from a white person, any white person anywhere on the planet? Is it 15 feet? Is that separation? Is it 18 miles? Is it 2,000 miles? Is it 1 block? What do we mean when we say separate?
Mm-hmm.
Separate. See what I mean?
Yes, sir.
There used to be signs up saying we believe in separation, and other people say they believed in integration. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, what is the definition of a separate person and an integrated person?
So in order to start
that you see one minute by minute. See, I'm talking about by minutes here.
Right.
See what I mean?
And so in order to start that,
people are moving around all together, all day long. People are moving. So if I'm standing 15 feet away from a white person, does that mean that I'm now separate from that white person? But if I'm 14 feet away, then now I'm integrated with the white person. What are we talking about?
Okay, so then that means
this has never really been spelled out, but we've been talking about it for decades. We got to be really logical in everything that we say. I mean, like razor sharp logical.
So
not just throw words around just any kind of way, and that's where all this confusion has been. That down through the years, we've never really solved this problem because we've never gotten the language straight.
Right, and as you always say, and I noticed as you were talking about that, you start up by doing what? Asking questions.
Yes, all problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. I mean, as far as I know, if someone knows another way, I'm not aware of it. But I have noted that seems like down through history, every problem that's ever been solved has been solved through the process of questions and answers. That brings on another question, that brings on another answer, that brings on another question, that brings on another answer. Someone said that's what you call the Socratic Method. Well, whatever they call it, it's a mathematical method too, because mathematics is all about raising questions and coming up with answers. Yes. What is 1 and 1? That's a question. Well, 1 and 1 is 2. See? Okay, prove it. See? So if you're in a math class, I mean, you prove what you've already said. And it's supposed to be how do you go about proving that 1 and 1 is 2? See what I mean?
Yes,
so
sir.
that brings on another question.
Yes,
right?
Sir. All right. Thank you, caller, so much for your call. You're listening to The Compensatory Concept, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. That is radio the way it should be heard. The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., and you can get his book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy. And you can get that by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com to get the book. And as he mentioned in our first callers, or in his dissertation to the first caller, that there is an additional word guide for purchase, for separate purchase. And you can get that at the same place, producejustice.com. And as far as I know, Mr. Fuller, you can now get the book now?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Right. You can get both of them right now.
Right now.
By going to producejustice.com.
Producejustice.com. And Mr. Fuller and the staff over there will make sure that you get the book. And that's good. Got a question here from Mr. Rodney. He says this: my question for Mr. Fuller is that how do we teach our youth that they can be constructive when the system teaches them that our people were enslaved and were treated as a lesser equal to whites? I know that history is important, but I feel this puts a stigma on every black male or female across America.
What do we say? People sometimes ask, what do you say to young people? Okay,
Yes.
logically speaking, you say to young people the same thing you say to any people. You know, old people, tall people, short people. You just tell them the truth. And the best time to tell a person is when they are willing to discuss the subject that you're talking about. That's the best time to discuss anything. When people are busy doing something else other than what you want to talk about, then they're not going to pay you too much attention. So I always tell people, because people sometimes say, I try to talk about racism to people, but sometimes they don't want to listen. Well, that means that it's not important to them at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But when people start asking questions about racism, that means they are ready to discuss the subject that you're talking about. And that would not only apply to the subject of racism, that would apply to any subject. People are ready to talk about the subject when they are ready. So that's the only time you can really talk to anybody about anything.
Is when they're ready.
Yes, and
Okay.
that's also the courteous thing to do. When a person says, well, I didn't want to talk about, train wrecks last week when you brought it up, but I'm ready to talk about train wrecks now because I was in one last night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now you know that's the signal to discuss it.
Okay.
And when you do, make sure that what you say, you're telling the truth. That's number one. And then if it's a problem, then you go into the question and answer system, because how are our problems solved? Through the process of questions and answers.
Yes, sir. All righty. Let's go to the phone lines. Line number 2. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question?
Greetings. Good morning. Thank you for taking my question. My question for Mr. Fuller, I guess it has two parts. It's about economics, first area of people activity. My question, number one, Mr. Fuller, have you seen examples down through the years where black people have had arguments or problems around money? And specifically when I say money, like either donations or investments, like allegations of misuse of funds. Have you seen a lot of that down through the years? And my second question.
Wait a minute. Let him answer the first question. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Yes. In the system of white supremacy, everybody is taught to misuse funds. I mean, cheating people. That's a big part of the system of white supremacy. And the system of white supremacy is the only system that we're familiar with. That's the only system we've ever experienced. If you're classified as non-white and you're on this planet, you haven't experienced any other system except the system of white supremacy. So being deceptive in the handling of money is a part of the white supremacist system, because being deceptive in everything, including right now, lately, I mean, who's black and who's not.
Yes.
All right? We have a little incident of that, but that's another story. But the direct answer to that question, yes. In the handling of money, you have to always be very careful that you're not being cheated, and try to encourage people or teach people or lead people in the thinking of don't cheat when you're handling money. Don't make promises that you can't keep or won't keep, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, I mean, people always, when money is involved, I mean, it brings about a whole bunch of problems, because the first thing that we are all taught to do is how can we get over on somebody, to use a slang expression, when it comes to money. And so you have to constantly fight against that, and simply by saying there's certain things I outlined that you say you don't do. Among non-white people, it's okay to donate money. I mean, if the person will accept your donations. I don't accept donations, but it's okay to donate money to people who, you want to donate money to, and you know who it is that you're donating to and for what reason. I mean, it's okay to do that. And you do it in the names of the people who are just involved in the donations themselves. And in any other business transaction, buying something, selling something, I sell a book. So, I put the price on the book, And I try to keep the price reduced. At one time, I had it reduced quite a bit from where it is now. But in the system of white supremacy, sometimes cost of things go up because I have no control over the cost of a lot of the elements that go into producing a book. Why? Because directly and indirectly, the white supremacists are in control of all of the money on the planet. So they determine the value of money. They determine, I just read an article just the other day about, I think it's in Gambia, Africa, where no, it's not in Gambia, I think it's Zimbabwe, where the money is almost worthless there.
Because?
Because, I would say, directly, indirectly, the white supremacists have juggled the value of the money so that it is worthless. Because the white supremacists that make the determination about all of the money that non-white people have and what the worth of it is at any given moment.
All over the globe.
All over the world.
Yes, okay.
You can go and set up what you call your own country, like something that was alluded to this morning in this conversation, because that's what Malcolm X was talking about. Separation is the answer and whatnot, and Elijah Muhammad and other people. Okay, but that means you got to separate that monetary system too, because if your monetary system is entangled with the white supremacist monetary system, you are dominated right there.
Right there.
And the white supremacists always see to it that they dominate your money.
Yes.
The value of your money. Why? Because they dominate the value of you. If you are non-white.
And the whole planet.
Yes.
What is your second question, sir?
The second question was just if he had some suggestions, if he had codified things that black people can do to try to minimize conflict, particularly if it's black people working against racism and that sort of issue comes up about, money and it being mismanaged. Just suggestions, codification on how to minimize problems in that area.
All right. Mr. Fuller?
Thank you.
Yes, you minimize money by not loaning any amount of money that you can't afford to give. Now, I know that's harsh, but here's what usually happens when black people loan money to each other. It's not that we are dishonest and have ulterior motives, all of us, or most of us, or even you might say, it's always some of us, but I'm saying most of us. Let's just assume that most of us don't have that intent. But problems come up. So I borrow $500 from you, and I say I'm going to pay it back in 2 weeks. Well, in 2 weeks, all kinds of problems come up, particularly among black people. So I can't pay you the $500. So I pay you $100. Okay, the problem has already started right there, because I promised what? To pay you the entire $500 back in 2 weeks. But things came up. Problems came up, the same problems that maybe, or amplified problems that I had that caused me to have to borrow the money in the first place. See, so the problems keep multiplying.
Yes.
And the next thing you know, I paid you back $250, and then I start saying, well, I'll pay you when I get it, and I don't know when that'll be, and then you're still looking for the money. And so time goes on and goes on. So one day, you start dodging me, and then, and then I'm getting surly about it. So then I come up and we start discussing it and whatnot, all like that. And the next thing you know, there's a big argument, and then we have what you call a falling out.
Yeah.
Sometimes it leads to killing.
Yes, it does.
Okay? So therefore, some years ago, I made an assessment of that. I said, black people are in such big trouble all the time that when we loan each other money, we can't get in position to pay it back. Because the troubles keep coming. And the same trouble that got us in trouble in the first place, or some new troubles that came up. So you get to the place where you want to pay it back, but you really can't without putting yourself deeper in trouble.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Yes, sir. You know, it's funny that you say that because I heard somebody say at one point there are three distinctive things about trouble. And I said, well, what are they? He said, either you're on your way to some trouble, just coming out of some trouble, or just getting ready to get into some trouble.
Absolutely.
It made me laugh, but, you know, when I thought about it, it was right on. You're listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTameItRadio.com, and that is radio the way it should be heard. I got a question from, I guess his name is Robert. He says, Mr. Fuller, I've made several comments and asked several questions in various Facebook groups. Recently, someone quoted someone from the NAACP as saying, quote, racial ethnicity doesn't matter, end of quote. I quoted the textbook, and in response, the OP, which is original poster, said I was philosophizing or ranting. Is it correct that there are only three kinds of people in the known universe? Also, is it incorrect to allow white people, not white supremacists, to assist non-white people in replacing the system of white supremacy with a system of justice? I ask because I have been called names I didn't ask to be called by black males who only care about so-called black economic empowerment.
Well, here again, that's a lot of things were said in that question. So I'll just try to take them all in aggregate.
Okay.
Basically, you either have a system of white supremacy or you don't. Now, if people can't agree on that, then we can't agree on anything. I mean, after that, I mean, if you say that we have a system of white supremacy, that means that the people who believe in mistreating people based on color are in a supreme position. They have the power to do what it is that they are doing, and that is mistreating people on the basis of color. Now, the people who are subject to this system, the non-white people, they either are or they aren't. So if we can't agree on that, we can't agree on anything else anyway. When people tell me that, well, you're making it up, there's no such thing as white supremacy, I said, well, then it's best that you have another discussion with somebody else about something else, because that's what I'm talking about. I have concluded that there is such a thing.
Right.
All right? So there's no point in us talking, since you have already said, I made it all up, it doesn't exist. Okay? So we don't have anything else to discuss, because, hey, why discuss something that doesn't exist when you have already concluded that? And I have concluded just the opposite, that it does exist.
Okay.
It not only exists, it governs even this conversation that we're having. Okay? Or we wouldn't be having the conversation in the first place. That's the position I've taken. See what I mean? So that's where we go with that.
Okay, then he says, is it incorrect to allow white people, then he put it in parentheses, not white supremacists, to assist non-white people in replacing the system of white supremacy with a system of justice?
Oh, any white person that goes around saying that they're trying to produce justice, you just listen to them. That's all. Okay. I mean, it doesn't call for a comment. It doesn't call for a comment at all. If they say that's what they're trying to do, and if they ask you to make a comment, you'll say it. You'll just simply say, according to the code, sir, ma'am, I'll believe it when I see it.
Okay.
In other words, when you complete it, when you get the job done, I'm not going to monitor you, And
quickly before we go to break, what is this so-called black economic empowerment? What is that?
Well, I don't know what it is. The person would have to tell me what that means and what the process is for doing it.
Okay, because this brother was saying he was called a bunch of names. Anyway.
Yes.
All right. TalkTameItRadio.com. Check us out on WCRS FM 98.3 Wednesday and Sunday evenings. Blogs and podcasts are available. Download TalkTameItRadio.com app to your cell or tablet. We go where you go. Radio the way it should be heard. Listen, we have more of your calls. more comments via the email, all that and much, much more. Coming up here on TalkTainmentRadio.com, radio the way it should be heard.
TalkTainmentRadio.com is the premier internet radio platform offering 40-plus talk radio-style programs professionally produced, optimized for online distribution, featuring Columbus, Ohio on-air personalities. TalkTainmentRadio.com offers listeners diverse programming options covering topics such as arts and culture, love, life and relationships, technology, religion, paranormal activities, local and national politics, women's issues, alongside health and wellness. Listeners can access their favorite TalkTainmentRadio.com programs free of cost through the website. Download the TTR app to your cell phone and you can take us wherever you go. We have programs on demand to fit your schedule through our podcast. The address is TalkTainmentRadio.com.
LaGlory Soul Food Cafe, a taste of Southern classic, located at 3350 Allegheny Avenue in Columbus, Ohio. They've got everything you need. The famous LaGlory burger, chicken and waffles, shrimp and grits, walleye, perch, and whiting, and fish dinners, all Southern style food.
Oh boy, what good eating!
LaGlory Soul Food Cafe, a taste of Southern classic, located at 3350 Allegheny Avenue, Columbus, Ohio. Be sure to tell them that All in Our Family sent you, and you will receive an extra side dish with each meal. LaGlory Soul Food Cafe, a taste of Southern classic, located at 3350 Allegheny Avenue, Columbus, Ohio. For carry-out, call 614-237-5844. Get the menu at LaGlory'sCafe.com. Open 7 days a week.
For the best eating in town.
Goodwill is a global social services enterprise and the leading nonprofit provider of job training programs and career services in the United States and Canada. To pay for its program, Goodwill sells donated clothes and other household items in more than 2,700 stores and online at shopgoodwill.com. Goodwill uses the revenue earned from these sales to fund job training, employment placement services, and other community programs. The goal of the campaign is to increase goods donations to Goodwill, inspire an emotional connection to the Goodwill brand, and to elevate preference for Goodwill.
We can give you a new heart.
We can help you walk again.
We can perform brain surgery.
We can treat a sore throat.
We can bring life into the world.
We can work so many miracles. But the one thing we cannot do is read your mind.
When you communicate with your doctor,
when you ask us more questions,
you reduce your risk of suffering a medical mistake.
Tens of thousands of lives are lost every year due to medical mistakes.
The healthcare community is working on it, but you can help.
Please, open up. Ask more questions.
What are the side effects?
When should I expect my test results?
Will this medication interact with my other prescriptions?
We can't answer if you don't ask.
Help reduce your risk.
Questions are the answer.
Learn the 10 questions you must ask. Visit www.ahrq.gov. This message brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, and the Ad Council.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him opening his own clothing store at the age of 18? 1 in 138,000. Excited to be a part of pop culture, he packed for the big city. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. I encourage you to learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference.
Brought to you by Autism Speaks, the Ad Council, and TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Go ahead. Make my day.
You got the power.
Alrighty, welcome back to TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. And that's radio the way it should be heard. You are listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. I am the co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard. You can get in contact with the show by calling 1-877-932-9766, although the phone lines are jammed up right now. And you can also Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. Now, if I don't get to it this week, I may get to it next week because we are completely loaded. I got to pimp the book, so let's do it this way. Listen, in order for you to fully, well, I feel, in order to fully understand what's going on here is you need to get a copy of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. Now, this is a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy. You can get that book by going to producejustice.com. Everything you need is right there to get the book. And there is an additional word guide for purchase. It's codified, which will help you understand and what to do, how to ask questions, and lead you on to where you need to be. And you can get that at producejustice.com. And there are copies now available. There was a problem, but now the problem, I understand, is now taken care of. So, producejustice.com. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Line number 3. Line number 3. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question?
Hello. I've been been wanting to talk to you guys for a while, and it's more so a statement, and I would like to both of you to kind of give feedback on how you feel about what I have to say. I want to start out by saying that I love the show, and it's funny that the show ends up, oddly enough, exalting Europeans. And I know that you guys are here to discuss how to deal with systematic racism and European dominance, but I just kind of get the vibe from everyday listening, kind of just perpetuating the idea of just this great might of Europeans. Just food for thought. But what I want to lead into is religion. I feel that with religion, as it pertains to blacks, religion it's purposely pushed amongst blacks. Because, like, for instance, Karl Marx, like, he's famously known for saying religion is the opium of the masses, or of the people. I don't remember the exact quote, but something to that effect. And it seems that religion with blacks kind of serves as a method for coping with, like the onslaught of European dominance. That would be my first statement. I would like.
Okay, well, let Mr. Fuller address that, and then we'll go to your next statement, and that will be the conclusion of that. Mr. Fuller?
Yeah, well, the strongest religion on this planet is the system of white supremacy. You might call it the religion of white supremacy. What is a religion? A religion is a strong belief backed up by action. That's what any religion is. It's not a religion if it's not a strong belief, something that some person believes very strongly, and they back up that belief by the things that he or she does. That's what a religion is if you follow the logic. Now, you can find different definitions for religion, maybe in different dictionaries, but in the compensatory counter-racist view, that's what a religion would be. Mm-hmm. So the strongest religion on the planet now is the religion of white supremacy. Okay. Why? Because the people who believe in it, they believe in it strongly, and boy, do they ever back it up with action. Now, a lot of people play with their religions. the white supremacists don't play with their religions at all. They follow it to the letter, and they follow it 24/7. They don't have lapses when they are not following their religion. Why did I say that? Because I've run into people down through the years, and we discuss religion, and they'll say things like, I'm Catholic, but I really don't practice it. Well, that's like saying you're an airplane pilot, but you don't pilot airplanes. That's the logic. You can't be something that you don't do. If you say you're a carpenter, you work with woodwork. I mean, that's the logical assumption. But you can't be something that, you have to be doing something.
Right.
Most religions have some kind of requirements. Now, somebody recently said, it was reported to me, that one prominent person said that what he liked about Christianity is that you don't have to do nothing. I thought that was very interesting. I'm quite sure that there are hordes of people who will believe, who will say that, argue against that. So I didn't say it. So don't say that I said it. I'm just repeating what somebody else said.
Okay.
And this person is reported a very prominent person in politics. I don't know whether it's even true or not. That's why I'm not even mentioning the person's name. But the person said what he liked about the religion of Christianity is that you really don't have to do anything.
Okay.
Right.
What is your second part of the question, caller? And could you make it a little brief? Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Second part is, in addition to religion serving as an instrument to keep us from practically confronting our problems, which is white dominance and abuse, entertainment also serves a huge form of escapism for us as well. And I personally believe that in order for us to progress and start to make headway in our fight against racism in this country and globally, we would have to remove ourselves from entertainment in the form of magazines, sports, music, you name it, et cetera, et cetera. We would have to completely, for the most part, remove ourselves from entertainment as a group.
And replace it with what?
I mean, there are many different options, such as push for education, such as a push for civil rights, human rights.
Mm-hmm.
There are many different things that we can replace it with, to list a few.
Okay. Thank you for your call. Mr. Fuller, you want to address that?
Well, if I understood what he was saying remove ourselves from entertainment?
Yes, he did say that.
Oh, well, entertainment is the third area of activity that's listed in the book, so it comes down again to definitions. What do we mean by entertainment? What I mean by entertainment in a counter-racist fashion is that your entertainment should be counter-racist, just like your labor should be counter-racist. Mm-hmm. All the other areas of activity. Your sexual activity should be counter-racist. Your religion should be counter-racist. What do I mean by counter-racist? Meaning against racism. Everything that you do,
right.
If you're a person on this planet dominated by people who believe in racism, should be geared directly and indirectly to be against racism and for. If you're against something, you should be for something.
Right.
All right? See, so if you're against racism, what should you be for? You should be for the thing that racism is against.
Right. Okay.
And what is racism against? Racism is against justice and peace. So
right.
You want a mechanism for doing that. So everything that you do each and every day, you should do it within mind, and you raise a question to yourself. The thing that I'm doing right now, is it against racism or is it helping racism?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's going to be one or the other.
Okay. Freedom Fighter writes this. I want you to answer these questions, and hopefully you can do it in brief. It says, besides your work, Mr. Fuller, can you share at least 3 other people who provide constructive dialogue, writings, and or does constructive work replacing racism, white supremacy with justice? That's what he said. All right, here's the second question. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, he asked, can I name 3 people?
can you share at least 3 other people who provide constructive dialogue, writings, and or does constructive work to replace racism, white supremacy with justice? Can you name 3 other people, or share 3 other people?
I don't understand the question. I really don't. Can I share?
It says, can you share at least 3 other people who provide constructive dialogue, writings, and or does constructive work replacing racism with white supremacy with justice?
Well, the best way I can answer that question is it's just what I said a few minutes ago. If you are a victim of racism, everything that you think, everything that you say, and everything that you do, wherever you happen to be, and it doesn't make any difference about the numbers of people that you are interacting with, should be about replacing the system of racism with the system of justice. And you have to have a code for doing that, meaning everything that you say should be doing something that's going to bring that about. And everything that you do should be. Now, that's difficult to do in a racist system, but you do your best.
You know, Mr. Fuller, that's why, and maybe, that's why I feel that this statement that you made back in 1971, which simply said, if you do not understand white supremacy, racism, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you.
Yes.
That's at the beginning of the book. You have to understand it, what it is, and how it works in order to just get started.
Just get started.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, then his second question, it says, can you share at least 5 constructive things non-white people can do to help replace racism, white supremacy with justice?
Well, to start off, what has been mentioned in this program is economics.
Okay.
So economics, according to the code, according to logic, is the use of time and energy, not just money, but the use of how you use your time and how you use your energy. So, on page 58, 59, and 60 of the textbook, you just have 4 things. How you spend your time and energy when you're given a little bit of leeway to do so. And so you spend your time and energy, number 1, just 4 things. You can't get lost. Producing things of value, repairing something of value. If you find yourself repairing something of value that can be used for a constructive purpose, or you're producing something of value that can be used for a constructive purpose, that's putting legs on a chair or something like that.
Yes.
Or producing anything, food, if you're a farmer or whatnot, or if you're serving somebody something of constructive value in a restaurant that you have, and that food that you put on that table, you look at it and you ask a question. Now, I'm running a cafe. This food that I'm putting in front of these people, is it going to help their bodies? Is it going to build them up rather than tear them down? Now, if you're sliding beer across that table, now you got a question. Does beer help a person's body? And if it does, help that person's body to do what?
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
These are the questions.
Yeah.
They're just practical things.
Okay. You know, as you speak, to me, it's very clear. You got to start asking questions. I mean, it's imperative to start asking questions.
Yes.
And then that
every
will...
move that you make, you
Right.
should be asking questions.
Asking questions.
Why am I making this
Right.
move?
Right. Okay, and then finally he says, before we go to the phone lines quickly, how can non-white people improve their interpersonal relationships within this system of racism, white supremacy?
Oh, the basic way is to stay away from each other unless you have something constructive to say or do. And that would not only, someone mentioned that earlier on this program, and I wanted to get back to it too, right quick, because that would also include white people or any people.
Okay.
I don't care what persons they are. If you interact with anybody, it's supposed to be a constructive result. People walk up and down the streets all day, and I witness it. I think we all do, and we do some of it ourselves, talking on the cell phones. Now, we should ask ourselves, this is a contact that we're making with someone, somewhere in the world, somewhere out there. Is that contact constructive or non-constructive?
Non-constructive.
It's going to be one or the other. I mean, that whole conversation is either going to have a constructive result or a non-constructive result. If you anticipate that conversation that you are going to have with somebody is going to produce something that's non-constructive, then don't have that conversation, period.
Got it. You're listening to The Compensatory Concept, heard exclusively on TalkTainMitRadio.com, and that is radio the way it should be heard. If you'd like to get in contact with the show, you can by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. If the show ends and you are still on the line, give your name and the city that you're in to Galen, and then we will put you at the front of the list for next week. All right, let's go to line number 1. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question?
My question is about the system of white supremacy. I want to make a statement, and then I want to add...
Okay, make it real quick.
Okay. The statement is that my understanding, white supremacy was the dominant system of social control in this part of the world up until World War II, from my understanding and research, and then it was replaced with another system. Now, before I mention this other system, I want to say I'm not judging the system. I'm not making any claims against this system. I'm not for or against it. I just want to say that before I say that. Okay. And the system of control that I think we're in under now is Zionism. And when I looked in your book, I did not see the definition for the word Zionism. And I wanted to know, is there a reason why Zionism is not in there?
You're on to something, brother. Mr. Fuller?
Well, I have taken a position that the system of white supremacy is the dominant system. See, so I just have to repeat that. That's what my entire book is about. You can't have two dominants. Now, whether it's Zionism or what any other type of ism, I mentioned some isms here in this program: socialism, communism, capitalism. There are a lot of people who, say that these are the things that we really have to deal with. These are the frightening things. that are stomping on everybody and ruining the whole world and all like that. I say, I don't really know what they're talking about. I say, I understand what white supremacy is, and I say that is the dominant system.
Yeah, that's the word.
There is no other, N-O, no other system.
Yes,
other than that.
That's the key word you mentioned, dominant. And in my humble opinion, that the other things you just mentioned, capitalism and whatever, and the brother had mentioned Zionism, would be included in the part of the dominant system of racism, of white supremacy. What is your second question, brother?
Well, if white supremacy, and this is my second question, if white supremacy is the dominant system, do you believe that white supremacy is capable of producing systems of control in non-white areas, such as the United Nations, the National Monetary Fund, the World Bank, where it can operate in areas where there are no whites?
Ms. Fuller?
The system of white supremacy is dominant, and I'm going to repeat this. I'm going to try to do it slowly. The system of white supremacy is dominant, and underline the word dominant.
Yes.
Over all of the activities of all of the people classified as non-white on this planet, 24 hours a day, each day, every minute of every day, without exception, in every area of activity. And those areas of activity are as follows: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. That's what I mean by dominant. It means that you don't make a move if you got color in your skin that the white supremacists are not dominant over. That's what white supremacy means.
That's what it is.
It's absolute.
All right. Thank you for your call, brother. Let's see. What line are we on, Galen? Line number 2. Okay. Line number 2. Good morning. You're on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question?
Yes. Being that you speak in absolutes, the first caller made an interesting analogy. You know what I'm saying? He said where it comes down to in calculatory as you calculate that the Martin Luther King movement and what you're saying, you know what I'm saying, he complacently says that it's the same thing. And then you said you it goes into definitions, you know what I'm saying, if you want to talk about separation and so forth. Well, what separation? I don't think that was adequate an answer, you know what I'm saying, for as, you know what I'm saying, because you can separate mentally, you can separate economically, you know what I'm saying, where you say economics is a mindset, you know. So I guess I'm asking, how do you know what I'm saying, can you be more definite about separation?
Okay. Can you be more definite about separation? Mr. Fuller?
Well, you can't separate on the planet. You're not separated from anybody. Depending on what you mean by separation. I gave an illustration. Let's get the word straight. See, that's why I have a word guide. I say you're not separate from people, yet you are separate from people, because we're not, unless you're attached to a person from birth. I mean, your body is attached to that person, and every time you make a move, that person
let me interject real quick. White supremacists have created a separation to where they can oppress, right? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, in other words, that type of separation. Well, then, see, the word separation, I mean, if I'm oppressing somebody, I'm not separate from the person that I'm oppressing. See what I mean? It depends on how you want to use the word separate. I say get rid of the system of white supremacy, meaning the person who is doing me harm can no longer do me harm. It has nothing to do with separation, depending on what you mean by that. It has to do with I can stop the person from harming me. I understand that. The person who is hitting me over the head, the person who is poisoning my water. Now, the person who is poisoning my water, the water that I have to drink, may be 10,000 miles away. But I have to stop that person from doing that. I'm on the same planet with this person. So just trying to run away from the person, I mean, where is there to run when they can poison the water that I drink? See, we have to take into consideration the system of white supremacy and how powerful it is. So you have to stop the people who are doing what they are doing from doing what they are doing. That's what you have to do. There's no way around it.
No way around it. Okay. Brother, I hope that gave you a little bit of insight on there. I know it's difficult, but that's why I asked you to get the book at producejustice.com, the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. Thank you for your call. Okay, brother, line number 3? Okay, number 3, what is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Yeah, I know I don't have that much time.
Yeah.
My question is, I was watching the news this morning, and a young lady, Rachel Dolezal, made a statement that says she's transracial, and I was confused as to what that statement means. What does transracial mean?
Mr. Fuller?
I don't know, because here again, in the system of white supremacy, you've got hundreds of terms that are designed to support the system of white supremacy.
And confuse you.
Yes, that's what it's for confusion. See, just a little while ago, and you still have it, you had this transsexual thing. All right, I've been talking about it and talking about it, and more people are becoming silent about it because they don't even know how to talk about it. I mean, so they're just letting it go whichever way it goes. Now, I knew that would lead to something called transracial, and neither one of those terms makes sense. And I'm going to say this right out of the bat. And anytime somebody comes up with this trans stuff, trans this and trans that, watch out. It sounds like something the white supremacists are cooking up, and that's what I'm saying. They are the ones behind it all.
Wow.
Thanks a lot, man.
All right. Thank you, brother. Thank you for your call. And thank you, callers. Listen, talkteam@radio.com. The world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. Thank you so much for your call. We welcome that. Hopefully, Mr. Fuller had an opportunity to address your questions or concerns. If I didn't read your email, trust me, I'll try to read them next week or as time permits. Again, thank you for listening all over the world. This has been The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller. Again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller. Heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com.